afternoon. Welcome to Rajya Sabha Television. You're watching The Big Picture with me, Frank Pereira. The Narendra Modi government is expected to bite the bullet on contentious economic reforms, including those in labour and banking and financial sectors, after a ringing endorsement of its policies from voters in assembly polls on Saturday. The BJP registered a resounding victory in the Uttar Pradesh elections, which were billed as a referendum on demonetization, a controversial decision by Prime Minister Narendra Modi last November. The poll outcome belied apprehensions in the Sangh Parivar and a section of the BJP about the political fallout of the centre's decision. The concerns were accentuated by a concerted attack on the government by opposition parties, which sought to make political capital of people's hardships. With his demonetization gamble paying off electorally, Modi is expected to push reforms, including those perceived to be politically unpalatable. On this edition of The Big Picture, we will look at what these election results mean from a reforms point of view. Joining me on the program today are N.R. Bhanumurthy, member NIPFP, Shubhamoy Bhattacharjee, consulting editor of the Business Standard, S.K. Jindal, chairman, Investments and Capital Markets, Associam, and Gopal Krishna Agarwal, national spokesperson of the BJP. Firstly, Mr. Agarwal, congratulations, many congratulations. It's been a splendid performance as far as the BJP is concerned. Now, what is the reforms trajectory going to look like in the near future?
I think we have very strong realization already that without economic growth, you cannot have the government cannot have the resources to distribute for the agenda to be followed, which had been the core of our policies for the last 3 years. That was pro-poor, building infrastructure, giving employment, giving housing, all these pro-poor social security schemes for insurance, other things. There had been a very concerted effort by Modi ji to look after the vulnerable sections of the society, include them in the economic growth of the country. That was, and when we are talking of social schemes delivery, there was a big gap of corruption or leakages on those social security schemes. That has also been one of the important agenda to block the leakages, like we did it through Jan Dhan accounts, through Ujjwala Yojana. Like this, to block the leakages, fight corruptions, create an ecosystem for equal opportunities, and go for pro-poor policies, pro-farmer policies. But if you want to take them ahead, we need a growth. Government need resources. Therefore, we have to move towards a larger economic development of the country, and for that, we think that ease of doing business is a major focus for our future growth of the country. That either you go, if you see, even demonetization was also for creating an infrastructure where transparent tax compliant transactions can move through. So I think ease of doing business is one important issue where we will go through. GST already, implementation of GST is a challenge, but that will move ahead. But these are the major, then labor, other issues for increasing the income of the farmers. We need a proper supply chain management. So there, like e-market, modifying APMC, those minor issues are there, but basically, grossly, if you consider, then this ease of doing business is an important
Indeed, that's a very valid point that you're raising as well. Mr. Jindal, how is the industry going to react to these elections really? Is it a good thing for the industry?
Very positive, because whenever you are supporting a positive cause, positive government, positive policy, you are making them stronger, and that is in the interest of the country at large. So this is what has happened. Earlier also, nobody was able to stop the reforms, but there were speed breakers on the way. Like GST could be done without Rajya Sabha strength. So their focus on big ticket reforms could not be denied, and that is where the whole success lies. Big ticket reforms, if they do small reforms, suppose, you will see no impact of that. Why? 125 crore people. Small reforms will not be visible. They will happen, but the impact will not be visible. So it has to be large ticket reform, and that is what their focus is on, and that is what will take us forward.
Sure.
And I really appreciate Reforms cannot be done everywhere. Here we have the potential to grow. Only thing is that these speed breakers will be less now. So this is a good message for the country, for the nation, for everybody, all the stakeholders.
Indeed, good message for all the stakeholders. Professor Bhanumurthy, now is the government in a position to take some, out of the box kind of decisions and take some really contentious reforms forward?
Yeah, I think certainly it's a big boost for the government to carry on many of the reforms that has been blocked by the political economy considerations. Having said that, in my view, the big reforms in a sense is very limited at this stage. Maybe the industry talking about labor reforms or maybe something like land reforms. I think these are the two important subjects which is in the purview of the state governments. So if you have more number of states coming to the NDA, that would be a big boost to have some kind of reforms at the state level. I think Prime Minister Modi is one of the persons who actually started labor reforms in Gujarat, and we have seen some kind of carrying forward of those kind of reforms in Rajasthan and to some extent in Madhya Pradesh and other places. So given this kind of a political setup, I think today's news is a really good news. I think credit positive for Indian economy. But my own worry is that I think we also need to have a strong opposition. Otherwise we will not be sure about what are the reforms which is good for the economy in the long term. So in that sense, the democracy gives a space where you have more discussions and debates.
Are you worried somewhere that the discourse is not going to be up to the level that it should be because of a weak opposition?
Yeah, I think that is my concern at this stage. The way it goes now, the way it's going on for the past 3 years, it looks like that discourse might be limited, and maybe we'll end up in a kind of reforms, although it looks good on the paper, but once it comes on the, I think once it's implemented, we might realize that it may not be a great reforms. So reform by stealth is something which we don't want. I think reform by learning is something that we are looking for, and for the past 25 years, major reforms have been implemented in this country. Of course, there are delays, particularly GST. We all knew that it's a good reform, good measure, but we took 10 years to. So those kind of hurdles definitely will go and must go. But I think if you are going for a very, very significant long-term reforms, I think we need to have a much broader discourse among the political.
Indeed. Yeah. Mr. Agarwal, I know you want to say something, but answer my question as well. One of the major criticisms of this NDA government is the fact that it does not take the opposition along with it. Now that you don't have to take the opposition along, will you still consult the opposition and take some constructive decisions?
No, we always said it was the opposition. We always said that we are ready to discuss everything in the parliament. We consider parliament is the major platform where you should discuss and debate the politics of disruption and to stop anything legal. What is the basic principle of responsibility of parliament? It is to legislate. Ultimately, parliament was being stopped from being doing the work of legislation. So I think debate and discussions are in economic field without election, background of the election. Everybody, government would like good ideas, good initiatives, everybody will like. I think in Indian context, in the current narrative, reforms should be good governance. That's one important thing which was missing. We were talking of big ticket reforms and other thing, and we were not doing at the ground level of good governance, corruption-free governance. That is the major reform that already we are in the process. Modi ji's focus is on good governance. You see the way natural resources were being allotted in the corruption, the element of corruption. So if we remove corruption, we do good governance, ease of doing business, they itself will create a very big economic reform agenda that already people want. Sure. That's very important that we should understand. One data I would like to just share. There is a report today on Edelweiss on the economy. They are saying that by this election alone, the GDP will see a growth of 50 to 60 basic point. That's very important. the people, the positive sentiment this election will create in the governance, the confidence level it will give to the policies, and the confidence it will give to the stability plank in the international arena, to the business community. That itself will automatically catalyze the economic growth that we are looking for.
Indeed. Shubhamay Bhattacharjee, consulting editor of the Business Standard, unfortunately cannot be here with us in the studio, but he's joined us on the telephone line at the moment. You know, Shubhamay, as far as some of these reforms are concerned, what are the reforms that, you know, the BJP government has been unable to push thus far, and what can they do in the near future?
Yeah, if you look at them, one of the major areas of these reforms is the ones which can be handled by states. So if you look at power sector reforms, if you look at health sector reforms, if you look at education sector reforms, and in fact they are more than reforms, they're basically improving the way these services are delivered. And that is what the people in each state want. They want better health, care, they want better education care, they want better power. And all of these needs integration of the center and the states to speak more or less on the same lines. To that extent, of course, I would say having a major election out of its way, having UP and of course Uttarakhand also in there, and also creating a more stronger sort of set of understanding between the two domains is definitely welcome. But having said that, I would still underline that these set of reforms or changes are something that the states have to deliver, and there now with the current results, the BJP government at the center have even less reason to say that it is not able to unleash those factors of change which is so very necessary. For instance, labor reforms. We have been talking about them for a long time, but substantive steps have not been taken. It's only few states that have taken, and these need the pressure from the center and support from the states to be executed. For instance, on GST, Professor Bhanumurthy was making the point of a GST, and I think now is the time when we should ensure that the discordant noise that we have had about high tax rates going up to as high as 40% should now be taken off the book at all. The government should, at the center, should now be in a position to say, no, we should have moderate tax rates in GST. And there is no reason why the people of India will accept that if the center says, no, we still can't ensure that the rates are not moderate. Similarly, on land, I understand it's difficult. But on health sector reforms, why should not the center and the states, most of the states now being under the BJP fold, should not be able to come up with an agenda that actually provides a comfortable level of health care, primary health care to the people at large. The ways the government can say that, you know, we have a problem, the central government could say that we have a problem, the states are not falling in line. I think that area, that excuse will not be acceptable to the people at all from now.
Indeed. Okay. Professor Bhanumurthy, do you now see non-BJP states being more resistant to the center?
No, I don't expect. I mean, at least there are not many states in any case.
True.
So I don't think that resistance would be there. But in any case, states, even if it is ruled by the BJP or NDA, I think the states have their own issues. So maybe the tussle would be not between the opposition party ruled states or NDA ruled states. I think the problems would increase between the center and states together. I think the GST is one major area. You have seen in the GST council, irrespective of the parties, there are disagreements with the central proposals. So whether it is a BJP ruled or other non-BJP ruled states. So I think the center-state relations, I think, is going to be heating up, over a period of time if this trend continues.
Indeed. Yeah. Now let's talk about the markets. Mr. Jindal, long weekend, markets opened on Tuesday. Do you see a positive opening as far as the Dal Street is concerned?
Very positive opening. Nobody was expecting these kind of results, and this is not only these results, the way forward, the roadmap, what can happen in future. All those things, people are very, very positive on it, and I expect to see very strong opening of the markets, and they will change the course.
You know, we have a very large, sizable population of youth in this country, youth who continuously want jobs. Do you see that, the real test for this government is going to be job creation in the near future?
Job creation is very, very important point, and that also will get satisfied by way of doing business, ease of doing business, if it happens, which should happen. And this has got the key to success, because if you remove all the extra burdens from the business, business will grow, and if business grows, you will need more jobs, and that is how they will be created. So ease of doing business has got the final solution, a sustainable solution for all of us. This is a very important thing, and strong opposition, as I look at, may not be necessary in future, because people of the country, they will also control, they will see if this government is working right or not, if this government is working for them or not. They will also monitor it. So it may not be necessary that we will continue to be governed like we have been doing before, and then we need a strong opposition for you only, which is the way to control the government. No, people can also control, and I don't see any reason why government will not work until whatever they have done until now. They will follow the same thing, but with more vigor and with more energy and less speed breakers.
And if they don't work, the people will decide in 2019.
Yes, of course.
Indeed, indeed.
Yes.
Shubhamay, as far as demonetization is concerned, we saw over the last 3 months or so, demonetization subject, of course, dominated the discourse as far as the economy is concerned. But this election has clearly shown that demonetization did not have a negative impact, but seems to have had a positive impact.
Yeah, when I traveled across Uttar Pradesh, I did not find demonetization at all raising its coming up as an issue whether in the rural areas or in the urban areas. Demonetization, whether it was acted as any way, was simply not there on the agenda of any of the parties. Even if the parties had wanted to raise it, the people were just not interested. To the extent you're saying right, that demonetization didn't come as a negative impact, and that I think was a severe mistake that many of the opposition parties made initially to try to paint it as a villain of the piece. It was not seen as a villain, but then giving them credit, the other point is it wasn't even seen as a change bearer, but it was seen as the ability of a prime minister to go for an unconventional remedy for a problem that has been besetting India for a long time. That to that extent, it definitely helped Mr. Modi, that people believe that if he wants, he can deliver, and he can deliver an out-of-the-box solution. So that belief definitely got bolstered. But people, without saying that they got a result, or if they didn't get a result, that was definitely not an issue at all in this election in any of the states.
Sure. Okay. Fair enough. Professor Bhanumurthy, the Prime Minister Modi is a charismatic leader. He's an audacious leader also, as some would call him that, and someone who's willing to take risks. Demonetization was a risk that he took, and it seems to have paid off. Are there any more risks to come?
That's really absolutely difficult to predict what is there in Prime Minister's mind. But as Mr. Agrawal very clearly said, I think the focus is more on improving the governance at the ground level. There are many initiatives have been taken up. Some of them are old, but I think the way it's been implemented during the current regime is much more stronger. Jan Dhan scheme itself, it was there in the past, I think, but the way it's been implemented in this.
So the PR mechanism also has a big role to play in some of this.
Yeah, of course. I think, when you're doing something, it's very important to have a good PR to, take this to the people. But I think what I'm expecting is that maybe there may be some relook at FDI and retail, which was a very contentious issue. I think everybody knows that's a very important measure if you want to really, increase, the linkage between agriculture as well as, citizens. So I think the FDI and retail is one of the policy measures which has been pending for quite some time. Maybe that might come on the table, but I'm not really sure. It's very difficult to predict what is there in the mind.
Indeed, indeed, indeed. Mr. Jindal, what are your expectations as far as the industry is concerned? What is it that you want the government to do now that they have this clear mandate?
Focus on ease of doing business, remove all those hurdles, and which they are thinking and they are doing also, that lot of things can be done online now. So that has made life simpler. But much more can be done also. There is much more scope for other things to be included in that.
And what are some of these things that can be done as far as much more is concerned?
Like governance for business, all those permissions required to run business and all those restrictions, all those delays, etc., they can be cut. All these will improve the efficiency of business and make it more competitive, and then you can flourish and then you can create more jobs. And creating jobs, as I was telling, once you give a job to somebody, he doesn't remain burden on the country anymore. Then he is doing for himself and he is no more a burden. Similarly, when you are doing something pro poor, these poor people, when they get some help, they can also come out of that burden category and they will not remain anymore the burden on the country. So that is what is required. And on business front, all those things which make business difficult, like tax terrorism. Why we need this kind of tax structure? We don't need it. Tax collection has increased after demonetization. Tax base will also increase. All those things will help create to collect more taxes, to use it for more growth for the country. So all those systems should be formed in favor of the people, which will work. Because our country, it has inherent strength. Our macros are such, our demand is such, we are not dependent on others for that. So those kind of strengths can be used, and these results, today's results, has removed all the doubts, all suspicion, all apprehensions in the mind of people all over the world. FIIs, for example, they will be very happy to come now with more force into the country for investing in our country. So all those things will help, because these results give you a clear indication. They remove all the doubts that they are here to stay, and they are here to stay for say 7 more years or 8 more years. That gives them comfort and convenience to invest more.
Are you here to stay for 7 more years, Mr. Agarwal? The 2019 is already in the bag, do you believe?
No, definitely. We want the mandate, we want the people's mandate, that we want to implement the policies, that our core ideological issues of Antyodaya, etc. There are a big economic agenda that we have to put through. We want the economy, we are a strong nationalist political party, we want our nation to be strong. All these things require a longer period. Definitely we want the mandate. But I would also like to tell, there are very small steps which have a very far-reaching effect on the economy. You see the way Pragati is being implemented by the PM himself, personally taking care of 50 projects per month on held up projects on various cases, and the amount of goodwill, amount of project recovery or restarting those stalled project has taken place by this small steps. So I think tax reforms is an important area, and one unorganized, we are depending on employment on the unorganized and agriculture sector. This will be the focus area, and there is a misconception that unorganized sector tries to be in informal ecosystem because of just tax compliances. Ultimately, it is because there are so many hurdles on doing business, like licensing, other permissions, registrations. So these things can be, these are major agendas that we think will come in very near future that the government will take up.
Indeed. Shubham, which are the areas do you believe that the biggest reforms are going to be in the next couple of years or so? Do you believe that there are going to be some major reforms as far as the banking sector is concerned as well?
Well, certainly. I mean, that was something on which mandate was never an issue. The issue there is capital, and you're absolutely right that banking reforms would be the underpinning of most other developments in terms of capital requirements of the economy. But I would say that labor reforms is probably the more significant as I see it, because that decides on how many jobs are going to come up. Remember, the mandate for Mr. Modi this time, and in fact the earlier elections, have been from the young, the aspirational Indian. And that's where my good friend Mr. Agarwal's point that about providing jobs, I take it very nice. I mean, I think that's a very positive point, because ultimately people are voting for the fact that they want jobs, and they believe that the people would be able to why then the job is better than the others. If that is so, then it is absolutely important that the piece of job creation takes fillip in the economy.
Sure.
If that doesn't happen, then we have a serious problem on our hands.
Indeed, we do have a serious problem on our hands, because at the end of the day, the youth want jobs, and that's what everyone else wants as well. So on that note, we'll have to call it a wrap on this edition of The Big Picture. N.R. Bhanumurthy, Shubhamoy Bhattacharya, S.K. Jindal and Gopal Krishna Agarwal. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me on the program and putting things into perspective for us. That's all the time we have. Thank you so much for watching. See you again next time.